are talking On the Third Day, or at least that is the English translation of this Argentinian horror movie. Now, I'm going to be somewhat vague in regards to the plot synopsis here, as the movie tries to have a kind of reveal and it kind of buries the lead about what kind of movie this actually is until partway through the film. So, obviously, for fear of spoilers, I will be a little bit vague in my synopsis, but essentially, it follows this woman, Cecilia, who is on the road with her young son when she's involved in an automobile accident. And then we cut to 3 days later, where she seems to kind of wake up in this strange kind of abandoned house with little to no memory about what's kind of going on. She ends up in this hospital, and she's kind of has some sympathy by the kind of local doctor, but she's also under suspicion of nefarious acts because her son has gone missing, the other person involved in the accident has gone missing, and as the movie progresses, there may well be more people that either turn up dead or missing, and the suspicion kind of falls on her, but there may be something else afoot. What that is, you'll have to check the movie out. So let's discuss what I think works with On the Third Day. So this is kind of one of these movies which is somewhat artistically shot, and ultimately you could say this kind of has somewhat of an art house feel to it. I wouldn't go and say this is a full art house movie, but it does have some sensibilities here. Essentially a stylized kind of way of filmmaking, with the cinematography here being the kind of, I would say, the real star of the show. Fantastic use of light and shadow to kind of emphasize what is going on. There's a scene, for example, where Cecilia's under hypnosis, and we kind of just see like light over this kind of the sort of doctor's eyes, where he's kind of almost sort of far away, so to speak, and it's all done with kind of light and shadow and stuff, and also kind of camera work, lots of kind of extreme close-ups and things going to give you this sort of unnatural feeling. So I think that the actual direction here is very strong, and it kind of gives it this kind of stylized feel. It kind of, certainly in some sequences, you'll almost be thinking you're kind of watching something along the lines of Sin City. It doesn't go quite that far, but it has this very sort of stylized kind of style of filmmaking in certain sequences that I would say, it kind of makes the film have an art house feel to it, which some people may not like, but I don't think it kind of goes, as I say, I feel that is just a stylistic method that I think is used very well here to accentuate the kind of the off-kilter kind of situation that our characters kind of might be in, without kind of going into absurdity or surrealism or any kind of thing like that. I think it serves the story pretty well. Now, the actual kind of antagonistic force, shall we say, is revealed towards the kind of middle of the movie, I would say, maybe towards the end of the kind of beginning of the third act, but it's fairly obvious about what's going on. But without kind of spoiling anything, I do feel that this kind of this antagonistic force, as I refer to it, is treated with reverence and is actually kind of a more of a fearful representation of this particular antagonistic force that I feel is often depicted in kind of modern cinema. So I think they did a pretty good job there of making some quite fearful scenes. I mean, maybe this movie isn't out and out scary, but it's certainly dark and atmospheric in places when it needs to be, and feels macabre at the very kind of least. I think the cast do a pretty good job here. I'm not going to kind of pronounce anyone's names because, as I said, it's an Argentinian movie and it'll just be embarrassing on my part. But nonetheless, I do feel the cast do a decent job. It does feel like this movie has had real kind of like attention and kind of care whilst making it. When you compare it to another kind of a lot of the quickly produced kind of B-movie schlock that we get in a lot of kind of, unfortunately, independent kind of horror cinema, you really feel like this movie has had attention to detail in it. And it's kind of clear to see it. It's obviously very much a passion project, I would say, for the kind of the filmmakers there. It just feels like everyone is really kind of trying, bringing their A game to the kind of the movie. And when we do get more effects work revealed and things like this, I think it's to a good standard. it adds kind of things you've seen before, familiar kind of imagery, but I still feel it has an intriguing freshness to it that's kind of, it makes you kind of want to explore further kind of in this kind of world and kind of what's kind of going on and the origins of kind of certain things. I think is all pretty good. What doesn't work for me, as I've said, this movie it has this kind of reveal, I would say maybe probably just before two-thirds through the movie, but it's fairly obvious. I mean, I don't want to say it in respect of the kind of the filmmakers here. It's fairly obvious about what the actual situation is, if you ask me. I was thinking about when I was preparing for this review, I was like, do I actually say, because it's kind of, if you've seen any kind of movies before or horror films, there's a very big prop that is clearly will demonstrate what this film's about. But I'm not going to say. But I think the movie thinks that it is more of a reveal than it is. You're actually almost waiting for something else to happen. As a viewer, I was thinking, is it trying to subvert your expectations? And it has this kind of like, fairly obvious kind of prop that is used at the beginning of the movie. But is it going to do something else with it? No, it doesn't. It kind of does what you think it is going to do. But it treats it like it's this big reveal. Now, I think the other problem that goes hand in hand with this is the second act of the movie is very meandering. If I had to have a big complaint on this movie, the setup is interesting. The third act is, is kind of where the reveals will happen. But the second act to me, it felt like it was really treading water because it didn't want to do this reveal just yet. It was kind of like it was stringing the storyline on a little bit. And when it comes down to it, once you've watched the film and you kind of think about the events that have happened within it, ultimately there's not huge amounts of events within the movie. But it feels like it's just kind of being strung out in that kind of second act to kind of like stretch out the kind of the concept a little bit more, too much, if you ask me. I would have preferred personally to have the reveal a little sooner and then a little bit more exploration into what it all means, if that makes sense. There's also some characters that I feel a little bit underdeveloped. We have a kind of a priest character here that is treated in a way where, you're unsure whether he's a friend or a foe. And I feel like he was underdeveloped. His storyline was a little underdeveloped, if you ask me. And as I say, I mean, your personal preferences may be different if you don't like anything which is kind of too artistic or anything like that. But at the same time, you might have a preference to art house kind of movies, and maybe this will be too kind of mundane. But that is less of a criticism, more of a personal taste. For me, I think it kind of rides the balance pretty well of having a traditional style kind of horror movie, albeit with some artistic and kind of somewhat art house sensibilities and kind of, slightly kind of a non-linear story timeline to a degree that I think makes the film works, generally speaking, but it just lags in that kind of second act a little bit too much, if you ask my opinion. Anyways, but I would say this is an above average film. It's certainly a well-made, well put together film with an intriguing kind of threat hanging over it, and it'll be familiar but still kind of I think fresh. 6 out of 10 for me. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.